Hi, I'm here to celebrate Martin Luther King Day today. His birthday is January 15th. He was born in 1929. And actually, in my family, my mother grew up right around the corner from him in Atlanta, Georgia. So she knew when Daddy King had a baby boy. It was announced throughout the neighborhood. He already had a daughter, Christine King. She was the oldest child. And then came ML, as he was called when he was young. And he had a brother also named AD, and his brother died from drowning after his death, after Martin Luther King was assassinated. Well, this story today we're going to talk more about Martin Luther King and some of the words of Martin Luther King. I have a book, The Words of Martin Luther King Jr., and his father was Daddy King. Actually, his father preached my grandfather's funeral. My grandfather passed. My mother's father passed away. My mother has passed many years ago now, but she used to go to different schools and tell the kids about how she knew Martin Luther King. And a lot of them really didn't believe her that, someone out here actually knew Martin Luther King Jr. But a lot of people from Atlanta, grew up with him. But these are some of the words of Martin Luther King Jr., some of the things he stood for. He's a man of peace. He believed in nonviolence. And these are some of his words. Even though sometimes violence did erupt from the things that he was trying to fight, he himself was a nonviolent person. These are some of the words of Martin Luther King Jr. An individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity. Something else he said, every man must decide whether he will walk in the light of creative altruism or the darkness of destructive selfishness. This is the judgment. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Martin Luther King was a great man, and we have a national holiday for him here in the United States. There are many. He was a very eloquent speaker. He went to college at 15, and he earned a PhD from Boston University. It was not an honorary PhD. He'd earned a PhD, so he was a great and intelligent man, and also a minister. He said, everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics and physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. Love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. He was a great preacher, and he preached love. There are some other quotes in here that I have picked out. Forgiveness is not an occasional act. It is a permanent attitude. These are the words of Martin Luther King Jr. We must accept finite disappointment. We must never lose infinite hope. They're all words that we can still live by today, these many years later. There is little hope for us until we become tough-minded enough to break loose from the shackles of prejudice, half-truths, and downright ignorance. There were a few more I had marked in here. Say he was a great civil rights leader in a time making change in a time where things had really gotten bad. There were so many things that had gotten bad, and he went out and protested and brought others along. He was able to really bring people together. Some of the things he said, it is pretty difficult to like some people. Like is sentimental, and it's pretty difficult to like someone bombing your home. It's pretty difficult to like somebody threatening your children. It's difficult to like congressmen who spend all of their time trying to defeat civil rights. But Jesus says, love them, and love is greater than like. As you know, they did bomb his home. They still continued to love and press on to the mark. Let's see, I think there was something else in here I was going to read. There's also some things I wanted to read were some of the things that some of the kids said My mother went to a fifth grade classroom and spoke, saying that she knew Martin Luther King. And these are some of the things that the children said. Dear Mrs. Strahan, her name was Sarah Strahan, I just wanted to thank you for coming to our class and helping us learn about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I learned that Dr. King was a great man who only wanted to make the world a better place for blacks. He told us that if people still hate you, love them back. He also said that hating will only lead to more hating. I want to thank you for telling us that. And so that's one of the kids in the fifth grade classroom who learned that. My mother, they had studied Martin Luther King Jr., and my mother came to talk to the classroom. Dear Mrs. Strahan, this letter was written to thank you. You are very kind to come in our classroom and talk to us about Martin Luther King Jr. I think it's very cool to meet someone who knew him. I didn't know he had a nickname. You gave me and other students very valuable information on Martin Luther King Jr. After school, the day you came over, I told everyone I met someone who actually knew Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you very much. Like I said, my mother knew Martin Luther King Jr. and she grew up in the neighborhood where he grew up as a child. Actually, my uncle dated his sister Christine when he was a teenager in the neighborhood, and when my uncle passed away, she came to my uncle's funeral, and I actually met Christine King, Martin Luther King Jr.'s sister, there at the funeral. So we just have to continue to live in peace and continue the message that Martin Luther King lived. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall live in peace someday.